Tonight, the savanna trades its sunlit choreographies for a softer language. Listen as the horizon exhales and a different world arranges itself beneath the moon. As dusk thins into night, the air cools quickly, and that drop of temperature is the first quiet invitation for some animals to move where they would not by day. The cooling reshapes the savanna. Heat that once shimmered off the grass settles, scent molecules slow, and sound travels differently across the plain. Twilight is not a single moment, but a sequence of light, the warm afterglow of sunset, the blue hour that follows, and then a thin silver stage where moonlight, if present, becomes the savanna's chief lantern. Each phase subtly shifts animals' choices to feed, hide, or travel. At the edge of evening, insects often lead the chorus. The first tiny percussion of beetles and crickets can be heard like a low, restless heartbeat across clumps of grass. Those early clicks and buzzes set a tempo that larger animals use as timing signals for when to open their wings, ears, or paws. The scent of the plain changes as night arrives. Heat-driven odors that once rose like a curtain fall closer to the ground, making tracks and urine marks linger longer and travel differently. Many mammals rely more on smell after dark because scent becomes a clearer, longer-lived messenger than visual cues. Even the soil seems to alter its voice at night. Dry dust that rattled in the daytime hush becomes a softer, muffled carpet, and puddles reflect stars instead of sun, drawing creatures with a thirst or a curiosity that daylight could not satisfy. Night on the savanna is an economy of light. Moon phase, cloud cover, and distant fires determine how much the plain reveals. A full moon can reveal shapes and textures. A new moon drapes everything in black velvet, making the smallest sound a spotlight. When the wind dies and humidity rises after sunset, sounds carry farther. A single whistle or rustle can travel twice as far as it would in the heat of midday, and that extension of hearing changes how predators and prey arrange their movements. The first shadows of night are long and soft, and they teach the savanna to trade color for contour. Animals that relied on day colors now use outline, silhouette, and motion to hide or to seek, while those adapted to low light step into roles the daylight forbids. Night brings a different palette of predators and foragers. Some species are strictly nocturnal, others crepuscular, active at dawn and dusk, and many shift their behavior fluidly between day and night to match weather, moonlight, and risk. Under the first hours of darkness, the savanna becomes a tapestry of microclimates. Cooler hollows, warm termite mounds, sheltered dips, and open plains each offer unique advantages for feeding, mating, and refuge. Every creature chooses its patch with quiet calculation.
If you enjoy drifting through places like this, consider subscribing for more quiet journeys. A single distant trumpet, and the plain rearranges itself. Now listen as sight and sound retool for life in the dim. 11. Many savanna mammals have a reflective layer behind the retina called the tapetum lucidum, a biological mirror that amplifies faint light and creates the familiar glow in an animal's eyes when caught by light. It improves night vision without adding bulk to the eye. 12. Night vision relies more on rods than cones. Rods are the retinal cells that excel at detecting low light and motion, which is why movement and contrast matter more after dark than color detail does. 13. Pupil dilation is another simple trick. Many nocturnal animals can open their pupils extremely wide, letting in more light. The broader aperture changes depth perception, making the world feel flatter but more illuminated. 14. A leopard's eyes have unusually high rod density, aiding its stealthy prowls in low light, which is one of several subtle eye specializations that separate ambush hunters from those relying on speed. 15. Hearing sharpens at night for many species. Long, cupped ears or specialized folds funnel faint sounds of rustling grass or distant hoofbeats, and the ability to detect direction becomes as crucial as detecting volume. 16. Sound propagation at night often favors low frequencies. A low grunt or the thrum of distant hooves travels farther and with less decay than higher-pitched calls, shaping the vocal strategies of both predators and herbivores. 17. Some animals can reroute attention to one sense at a time. When visibility is low, scent and hearing may dominate, and when scent trails confuse, a brief shaft of moonlight becomes the deciding signal. 18. Whiskers, vibrissae, and sensitive snouts are night tools for smaller mammals. These tactile appendages map the world in inches and centimeters where vision fails, letting rodents and small carnivores navigate dense grass and narrow burrows. 19. The savanna's acoustic landscape is layered. Low insect drumming forms the base, small mammal chatter sits above that, and the occasional alarm bark or lion's breath is a punctuation mark. Each layer occupies a different frequency band to avoid muddle. 20. Some birds that remain active at night have unsymmetrical ears or flattened facial discs that focus sound toward their ear openings, a feature especially obvious in owls that helps them pinpoint prey beneath leaves or grass with remarkable precision. A hush like velvet spreads. Move closer and you will notice the details, the way a blade of grass trembles, the hush of deliberate steps. 21. Lions are often more active at night, using the cover of darkness to coordinate stalking and short bursts of speed, which conserves energy and reduces the risk from heat and parasitic insects that proliferate by day.
Their social hunting can be more flexible after dark, with roles shared quietly among pride members. Leopards rely on solitary stealth and exceptional night vision to ambush prey from trees or thick cover. They accept a lower rate of chase and a higher premium on surprise, often hauling kills into branches to avoid scavengers. Spotted hyenas are adaptable nocturnal hunters and scavengers. Their keen sense of smell and strong bite let them exploit carcasses and occasional nighttime hunts, and their complex social structure allows them to defend resources from competitors after dark. African wild dogs, while primarily day active in some regions, may shift to evening activity in hot seasons. Their endurance and coordinated relay running combined with careful timing make night chases effective when prey are less alert. Predators generally balance the energy cost of hunting with the risk of encountering other predators or losing a kill to scavengers. Night can tip that balance towards stealthy approaches and short, decisive efforts rather than long daylight chases. Hunting success rates often change with lunar cycles. In the faint light of a new moon, prey concealment improves, and ambush predators may benefit, while in brighter nights, predators must rely more on speed and persistence. Many nocturnal predators use scent to locate prey at the point of ambush. Once visual contact is made, a split-second decision, pounce or pursue, is governed by the light level, ground cover, and the presence of potential scavengers. Predators minimize noise. Paw pads, soft fur, and deliberate foot placement become tactics. Even without graphic detail, the savanna's night is full of practiced quiet, the same silence that allows a predator to get within striking distance and then vanish again into shadow. Territorial calls and scent marking continue through the night for many carnivores. These long-distance communications reduce unnecessary conflict and inform neighbors of presence without face-to-face confrontation. Predatory pressure at night shapes prey behavior. Many herbivores alter their spacing, increase group size, or choose vantage points where sound and scent can be easily monitored, trading feeding efficiency for survival cover. The grass becomes a humming carpet. Now listen to those who browse and trudge beneath the stars. Elephants often travel and feed at night, taking advantage of cooler temperatures to cover long distances and to find water or salt licks. Their massive bodies conserve energy in cooler hours and reduce daytime heat stress. Zebras use contrasting stripes that seem designed for daytime camouflage, but serve a different purpose at night. Motion and pattern can confuse predators' visual systems, making it harder to single out a target when shapes move as a group.
Antelope species vary. Some, like impalas, are crepuscular, grazing intensely at dusk and dawn, while others may feed sporadically through the night, depending on moonlight and predation risk. Grazing at night can help animals avoid the worst of daytime heat and biting flies. By shifting feeding to cooler hours, they reduce water loss and the energetic costs of thermoregulation. Wildebeest often move in large, loose groups after dark during migration pulses, guided by memory, scent, and the rhythm of the herd. Nocturnal travel can reduce predation risk for individuals inside the mass. Buffalo herds use close formation and coordinated movement at night. Large groups reduce individual risk and allow some members to feed while others remain vigilant, a quiet system of shared responsibility under the stars. Many herbivores show heightened vigilance immediately after dusk, a brief window where feeding halts and ears and noses scan the horizon until the rhythm of night feels predictable enough to resume grazing. Some browsers, like giraffes, will feed into the night when moonlight is sufficient. Their height gives them an advantage in low light, allowing them to detect subtle movements below and to reach leaves other grazers cannot. Nighttime foraging often involves shorter, more frequent stops rather than long, continuous meals. The broken pattern minimizes exposure and allows animals to test for predator scents or sounds between bites. Herbivores rely on communal cues, a sudden lift of heads, a series of snorts, or a coordinated movement to signal threat, and these collective responses ripple silently through herds before anything approaches too close. A wingbeat unseen skims past. The night will now show us those who travel the black by air. Owls of the savanna use silent flight, enabled by soft-edged wing feathers that reduce turbulence noise, allowing them to glide onto unsuspecting rodents with a near-hidden approach in low light. Nightjars, ground-nesting birds with cryptic plumage, are masters of camouflage and moonlit foraging. Their stillness by day makes their nighttime aerial sallies, catching large moths and beetles, feel like ghosts passing through the grass. Bats are among the savanna's most efficient nocturnal insect controllers. Many use echolocation, emitting high-frequency clicks and interpreting the echoes to build a three-dimensional map of flying insects and obstacles. Not all bats echolocate the same way. Some use rapid bursts for close-range hunting, while others use slower, wider calls for open-air sweeping, and their feeding styles subtly divide the nocturnal insect harvest. Nocturnal raptors such as owls often have forward-facing eyes for precise depth perception, a trade-off that gives superb targeting ability in dim light, though it narrows peripheral sight compared with some diurnal birds.
Many nocturnal flyers time their activity to insect life cycles. Peaks in moth or beetle emergence shape when bats and nightbirds become most active, creating a succession of aerial hunters that follows insect abundance. Migratory birds sometimes travel at night to avoid daytime storms and to use cooler air currents. Nocturnal migration allows them to feed by day and travel by night in safer thermal conditions and under starlight cues. The calls of nightbirds are often lower frequency than daytime songs, carrying across the plain as identity markers or territorial beacons without attracting too much attention from predators. Some savanna owls and nightjars nest close to termite mounds or under shrubs, taking advantage of the insects that gather there and using the warm microclimate as a protective nursery. Night flyers often show remarkable timing, bursts of activity around moonset or before dawn, short feeding windows that make the most of insect availability while minimizing hours spent exposed to nocturnal predators. A tiny percussion begins beneath your feet. The plain narrows into microrooms where small lives keep the old rhythm. Moths are famously drawn to light, and moonlight in particular can disorient some species, altering their navigation and sometimes concentrating them near lit waterholes or fires. This attraction has ripple effects for predators that follow. Fireflies, though more common in other regions, have analogs in tropical savannas that use bioluminescence for mating signals. These tiny beacons stitch the darkness with soft, purposeful glows that are simultaneously private and visible. Termite mounds act as thermal regulators for the savanna. Their architecture maintains stable internal conditions, influencing nearby plant growth and offering insects, reptiles, and small mammals a moderated microhabitat by night. Beetles perform much of the night's cleanup work. Detritivores and scavengers break down dung, dead plant matter, and small carrion, returning nutrients to the soil in slow but steady cycles that sustain grasses by morning. Rodents and small mammals use scent-marked runways through vegetation, hidden from sight but audible in the soft rustle of night. These paths concentrate energy flow for predators and seed dispersal, shaping plant patterns over years. The burrows of small mammals are often cooler and more humid than the surface at night, providing safe retreats that sustain communities of invertebrates and sometimes serve as emergency shelters for larger species when storms roll in. Nocturnal spiders are efficient night hunters, weaving webs that glisten with dew and reflect sparse starlight, turning the darkness into a hunting ground where vibration, not sight, reveals a captured meal. Small carnivores such as genets or servals exploit the cover of tall grass and shadows. Their keen night senses and agility allow them to hunt rodents and birds with minimal energy expenditure when compared to long chases. 59. Amphibians, where present in savanna patches, become noisy at night, calling from water margins and temporary pools. These calls attract predators and competitors alike and mark the seasonal pulse of rainy months. 60. Microfauna activity is highly seasonal, insect swarms, rodent booms, or a flush of breeding frogs, and when these pulses occur at night, they can transform the savanna's food web for weeks, drawing in predators and changing animal movements region-wide. The waterhole is a small stage where many stories meet.
Later, we will linger there, but first, let the night widen its lens. 61. Water holes concentrate life after dark. Animals that risk approaching know the trade-off, hydration and salt versus exposure, and their arrival times shape a quiet choreography of vigilance, feeding, and withdrawal. 62. At night, water reflects the sky as a black mirror, and animals use that mirror for navigation, approaching from downwind, keeping outlets open for escape, and often forming temporary truce-like spacing that reduces sudden conflict. 63. Baobab trees are nocturnal refuges for many species. Their hollowed trunks and wide branches provide shelter and nesting sites, while their flowers and fruit draw visitors on cool nights in search of calories and moisture. 64. Termite mounds are keystones. They alter drainage, create nutrient-rich soil nearby, and stand as elevated observation posts for small predators or watchful herbivores by night. 65. Small mammal burrows near waterholes create a mosaic of safety that supports insectivores and small carnivores. These burrows often open onto patches where dew condenses, providing reliable micro-water sources. 66. Aquatic insects around water margins become especially active at night, and their emergence drives secondary consumers such as bats and nightbirds to concentrate around shores, turning a small pool into a bustling micro-ecosystem. 67. Fallen logs and tree cavities warm more slowly at night, attracting reptiles that prefer steadier temperatures. When they do emerge for short nocturnal activity, they become unexpected participants in the waterhole's drama. 68. Many trees, particularly acacias, offer scented nectar or flowers that open at night. These resources attract pollinators and sometimes larger mammals that nibble at flowers, spreading seeds in the quiet hours. 69. Waterholes mirror lunar phases. On bright nights, the edges light up with shapes and ripples, while on dark nights, the pool is a black hole of silence that changes how animals approach and which species choose to drink. 70.
Human-made water points alter natural rhythms. Artificial lights, fences, and pumps can draw animals into new patterns, sometimes increasing conflict or disease transmission, a reminder that nocturnal ecology is sensitive to subtle human shifts. The plane keeps moving. Seasons and weather rearrange alliances, and under this night, the long journeys will begin to unfold. 71. Many migrations include nocturnal movement as a strategy. Moving by night can reduce heat stress and insect harassment, and allow large herds to cover miles when days are reserved for feeding and resting. 72. Nocturnal legs of migration sometimes follow the moon and stars. A bright night reduces navigational error, while a dark night encourages tighter grouping and a reliance on scent trails and the herd's internal memory. 73. Predators time some hunts around migratory pulses. A sudden flow of ungulates into a corridor at night can create brief windows of opportunity that ripple through local carnivore populations. 74. Seasonal rains reshape nocturnal travel corridors. Temporary rivers and new grass flushes create pathways animals prefer at night, and those routes can persist as tradition in herds across generations. 75. Some species show lunar sensitivity in their reproductive timing, with mating calls and movements coordinated to phases of the moon when light and predator behavior align favorably for offspring survival. 76. Nighttime travel conserves water for many species. By moving in cooler hours, animals reduce perspiration and respiratory water loss, which is crucial during long, dry seasons when daytime foraging is costly. 77. Long-distance travelers use landmarks revealed in moonlight, distinctive trees, ridgelines, or water-reflective hollows, and they blend these with memory and social cues to maintain route fidelity across years. 78. The rhythm of migration at night is punctuated by rest stops at predictable microhabitats, termite mounds, shaded depressions, and waterholes, making these features critical nodes in the nocturnal map. 79. Nocturnal migrants sometimes choose to move while local predators are less active, a subtle avoidance strategy that relies on knowledge of regional predator schedules and their own vigilance capacity. 80. Night can transform a migration into a river of sound. Hoofbeats, grunts, and the occasional alarm draw living lines across the plain that editors of the savanna's long story can read like seasonal chapters. A ranger's torch glints, then fades. Human tension threads quietly through the night, and conservation whispers in the margins.
81. Light pollution from distant towns or temporary camps can alter animal behavior by confusing nocturnal navigation, concentrating prey near unnatural illumination, and creating unnatural predation hotspots.
Poaching often occurs at night because of concealment, and the presence of snares, traps, or vehicles changes the distribution of animals that would otherwise move freely under the moon, an impact that can ripple across ecosystems. Night rangers and trackers trained to read prints, broken grass, and faint scents intercept many threats and help guide conservation interventions, performing a quiet, crucial duty under the same stars that guide wildlife. Community conservation initiatives sometimes organize nocturnal monitoring, using acoustic surveys and spotlight transects to estimate populations of bats, owls, and night-active mammals for non-invasive management. Artificial water points intended to support animals can unintentionally alter nocturnal migration and disease dynamics. Design and placement require thoughtful balancing of short-term benefit and long-term ecological integrity. Light used at lodges and tourist camps, if poorly shielded, attracts insects and alters local food chains, drawing predators and prey into altered temporal patterns that can fragment natural behavior. Conservation patrols often rely on nighttime intelligence, like radio-collared movement data and camera traps, to detect illegal activity and to understand how animals use landscapes when people are less present. Traditional, local knowledge about nocturnal animal behavior can guide effective stewardship when integrated respectfully with modern science, offering nuanced timing and location details that benefit both people and wildlife. Noise from roads, generators, or nighttime tourism can mask subtle acoustic cues animals use for communication, mate finding, or alarm, thereby reducing the effectiveness of their night conversations. Protecting corridors and dark sky stretches that connect core habitats is as important at night as during day. Animals that rely on nocturnal travel need unlit, undisturbed pathways to retain natural rhythms and genetic exchange.
A few plants open their flowers only at night, offering nectar to bats and nocturnal moths, and creating specialized mutualisms where the plant's reproduction is tuned to the rhythm of nocturnal pollinators. Some nocturnal mammals exhibit site fidelity to specific shade pockets or hollows, returning season after season to the same microsite that offers consistent moisture, shelter, or feeding opportunity. Unseen symbioses thrive at night. Dung beetles roll away nutrients under cover of darkness, while certain ant species patrol for small insects, and each action quietly supports plant growth and soil health the next day. Acoustic illusions sometimes mislead predators. Echoing topography, foliage density, and temperature layers can refract and distort sound so that a caller seems closer or farther than it is, influencing risk calculations on both sides. In some areas, observers have reported rare nocturnal behaviors, described in scientific accounts as occasional or population-specific, reminding us that variability and surprise are built into the savanna's nightlife. Night ecology is a fine balance. Small changes in light, sound, or water availability can cascade into shifts in species activity patterns, making the dark hours both fragile and resilient depending on the pressures applied. And finally, the night teaches an enduring lesson. What you cannot see often matters as much as what you can, because silence, scent, and shadow orchestrate lives in ways that daylight only hints at, the savanna's quiet network of cause and consequence. A moth beats against a distant lantern. The plain holds its breath and waits. The center of the night still hums. Waterholes continue to gather stories. Predators recalculate. Migrations steady their rhythm. And the smallest creatures keep the old tempo. Soon we will lean into the waterhole's hush and follow the thin line of tracks that lead through mud and moonlight. But for now, the savanna's night holds its cards close, inviting us to listen deeper. We lean closer to the water's edge, where moonlight sketches silver ribs on the surface, and the night arranges itself into a careful choreography of approach and retreat. The pool is small, a rough ellipse among trampling paths, and it holds a concentrated world. Damp footprints, the faint smear of a trunk, the interrupted ring of reeds where a small mammal slipped away. Here, under a sky so sharp with stars, it feels like an open book. The plain brings its stories close enough to be read by sound and scent. A buffalo moves first, massive and deliberate, feeling the night with hoofs that pause and press into mud like a slow metronomy. It lowers its head, nostrils flaring, and the wet air lingers on its muzzle. A zebra edges in behind, stripes blurred into bands of light and dark as it mirrors the buffalo's careful rhythm. Where their heads dip, ripples bloom and die. Where their ears flick, insects scatter in startled arcs.
There is no rush here, only the measured economy of consequence that governs every approach to water. An elephant arrives with the hush of great weight made gentle by patience. It smells the air, testing for predators, for scent trails of other herds, for the tang of salt. It blows once, a soft trumpet that feels like a punctuation mark in the night. Elephants often prefer the cool hours to travel and drink. Under moonlight, their enormous silhouettes are less obvious shapes than moving banks of shadow, shifting slowly toward the pool. When it drinks, the trunk curls like a flexible hose, and the waterflight ends up decorating its tusks and face with sudden, small stars of spray. From the high grass, a lone impala hesitates at the line where light yields to shadow. It flicks its tail, listening for the sharpened cadence of paws, for the breath that betrays an animal in waiting. Many small herbivores learn to consult not only sight, but the entire field of the night, sound, scent, the pattern of insect clicks, before they commit to a drink. Each pause is a consultation with the plain itself. Around the waterhole, the air thickens with insect life. Moths thread low circuits over the surface, wings feathering the air. Beetles patrol the rim, carrying evening's detritus back into the soil. Bats wheel high and low in rapid arcs, using echoes to map the space where sails and reeds obscure the finest details. Their clicks are tiny, precise chisels. They carve out an invisible geometry that lets them zip through branches and capture insects with astonishing economy. From farther away, a call rises, low and long, and the plain replies in a breath of other voices. Hyenas communicate across great distances at night. Their complex chorus carries social information: movement, recruitment, challenge. Their sounds are not a single mood, but a conversation, layered with clicks, whoops, and sustained calls that help groups find one another and regulate where resources will be contested or deferred. Nearby, a leopard watches from a low branch, its body a refined patience. It studies the scene with a composure that is almost architectural: balance, timing, and an eye for the exact instant when motion will translate into opportunity. It will not rush. Ambush is a slow art. A night ranger walks the old game trail that skirts the waterhole, a silhouette against a bank of distant termite mounds. He knows this place as a palimpsest of prints and scat, of broken stems and faint rubs on baobab bark. His flashlight is cautious, kept low and shielded to avoid startling the plain, yet he uses thermal and radio signals the way his ancestors used wind and sky. In his hand, a small black device blinks a steady heartbeat. Collars on several elephants and a collared hyena send quiet pulses of position.
These pulses are not intrusion, but information. Tools that allow those who care for the landscape to anticipate movement, to know when a herd will press against a fence line, or when drought-tight corridors need water. Around the ranger, the night is a tutor. He reads the spread of tracks like paragraphs, follows a fresh redirect where a mother might have led a calf away from a noisy pack, and notes the unusual circular impressions that suggest a turtle or a pangolin passing in slow, determined arcs. He records these observations in a small weathered notebook: dates, moon phase, scent of prevailing wind, and in doing so, he contributes to the long, patient archive that helps researchers make sense of seasonal change. Conservation, at its quietest, is a repetition of attention. Near the pool, a sense of diplomacy takes hold among species. Moments of truce where an elephant's shadow is politely acknowledged by a warthog's timing, where zebras queue like travelers at a fountain. These are not acts of goodwill in a human sense, but negotiated strategies that reduce conflict. Spacing rules are subtle and learned. Who drinks first? Who circles outward? Which exits are held open for a quick escape? In this way, the waterhole becomes a temporary micro-society with its own manners and etiquette. Camera traps blink in hidden thickets, mechanical observers that record the slow theater of the night without imposing judgment. Their photographs are quiet testimonies: an image of a buffalo's front, mud frozen like paint on its flank; a mid-yawn of a sleeping hyena;
a slim Jeanette's wrist caught in a beam. These frames, when compiled, become a durable ledger of presence and absence, of pulse and pause, of the way populations ebb and swell with seasons, rains, and human pressure. Above the pool, the sky is an archive of navigation. Stars map the same paths animals follow. Migratory birds use these points like a celestial grid, moving when thermal currents are calmer and celestial cues are clearer. At certain times of the year, the migration becomes a night tale of movement. Waves of hoof and snort and low consonant calls, animals traveling to grasses newly unfurled after rain. The moon becomes an ally or an antagonist. On brighter nights, predators may be hampered by the clarity that lets prey see them. On darker nights, charisma shifts toward ambush and the layered strategies that favor silence over speed. We can place ourselves beside a small pride of starlit watchers, a group of village trackers who come at night to check fences and repair water pumps, to listen for the odd sound that might signal a snare's clank. They move with hands full of rope, tools, and the patient knowledge that the night demands humility. Their presence is not a threat when practiced with care. It can be a hedge against the subtle, often clandestine pressures that bind a region's biodiversity.
Guardianship in darkness is unglamorous, often wet boots and mosquito-splattered faces, but it is foundational. Not every nocturnal moment is grand. Much of the savanna's night is episodic, made of small exchanges. A genet slipping along a termite mound, a civet scent marking its path, a mongoose trio breaking into a chorus of high-frequency warnings. Each action echoes into nutritional cycles. A dung beetle buries an old pile under cover of darkness, sequestering nutrients that in months will feed a tuft of grass. A seed clinging to an animal's fur drops into a microsite and begins a long negotiation with soil and sun. The night is fundamentally about incremental transformations that compound into the landscape's future. At the center of the waterhole's quiet, a coalition of hyenas approaches, not with a dramatic charge, but with practiced spacing and eyes that flick with assessment. They move as a conversation in motion, checking one another's signals, pausing when the group senses risk. Here, teamwork does not imply theatrical coordination. It means flexible roles and an economy of energy that allows scavengers and hunters to exploit opportunities without costly pursuit. Nearby, a leopard remains silent and vertical in its branch, uninterested in direct conflict and more intent on the private choices that keep it fed, timing a descent to the precise moment when a small, unwary creature separates itself from the herd. We notice the textures of the night here, the way breath becomes visible in cooler hours, each exhalation a tiny cloud, the way dew forms on reeds in precise, crystalline beads that reflect the moon like scattered coins, the way scent lingers on air currents, folded and refolded until it reaches an animal 300 meters away with the same immediacy as a spoken name. These are not simply details, they are the night's grammar, the rules by which the plane conveys information across time and distance. Conservation work in these hours often depends on the same subtleties. Acoustic monitoring can detect changes in bat populations or frog choruses, and camera traps can reveal the slow encroachment of a new fence line. Simple modifications, shielding lights at lodges, adjusting the timing of pumps, can reduce the distortion of nocturnal signals. These adjustments are not dramatic, they are tiny technical acts of empathy for a system that reads cues we often fail to notice in daylight. Occasionally, small surprises unfold that would be missed by daytime scanners. A young elephant calf, separated momentarily from its mother, will make plaintive, trumpet-like calls that draw attentive adults from nearby trees. A recorded collision of independent tracks at a waterhole can reveal a previously undocumented path used by leopards as a cross-plane corridor. These discoveries are quiet but consequential. A new corridor identified can become a focus for protection. A group of villagers trained to watch can become the difference between a safe crossing and a risky one for a herd. The night shapes not only the movement of animals, but the soundtracks of survival. Low-frequency communication, the deep rolling calls of some antelope species, or the distant bell-like calls of elephant social coordination, travels further when the thermal gradients settle at dusk. In this way, animals maintain social cohesion and coordinate travel across broad expanses without exposure to midday hazards. Their voices are a map, carrying information about distance, mood, and intent in frequencies that sit at the foundation of the night's acoustic tapestry. As the hours thin toward morning, a subtle shift occurs.
Many insect choruses begin to soften, and the first palette of dawn light slips onto the eastern rim like a thin wash of hope. Nightbirds give way to pre-dawn raptors, and animals that avoided the pool during darker hours begin to approach. For long-distance migrants, these pre-dawn hours are often a time of restitution, a brief pause to feed before the sky takes them inland. In the dim, unhurried space before day, human observers sometimes find the clearest times to work without disrupting wildlife. Rangers can adjust fences, researchers can retrieve collar data, and community members can move quietly to check irrigation points. When such tasks are done with respect, they can weave human needs into the landscape's existing rhythm rather than imposing a competing tempo. This is a central principle of sustainable stewardship: homeostasis over dominance, relationship over control. There is a kind of science that is best learned at night, a patient, observational discipline that values listening over immediate action. Acoustic ecologists, for instance, use long-term sound recordings to track seasonal shifts, the decline in a frog chorus that might follow a dry spell, or the rising frequency of particular bat calls indicating insect flux. These sonic archives become evidence that reveal the plain's slow ecological narratives: what changed, when, and possibly why. Such datasets are not glamorous. They are the quiet, patient records that enable meaningful interventions. And there are cultural stories folded into the night as well. Many local communities carry deep knowledge of nocturnal patterns: when certain grasslands burn safest, when migrating herds are likely to pass a ridgeline, where to set a temporary trap for the elusive honey guide. This knowledge, when shared and respected, enriches scientific understanding and provides practical pathways for conservation that are contextually grounded and more likely to be heeded by those living closest to the land. Light, so simple a thing, has become one of the most pervasive influences on nocturnal behavior.
Even low levels of artificial illumination can shift insect emergences, attract predators, and change pollination patterns. Shielded lights and low-intensity bulbs can mitigate many of these effects, and strategic placement, away from migration corridors and waterholes, allows human life to continue with reduced ecological ripple. These are not heroic fixes, but they are effective ones, small design choices that preserve the dark's functional value. Disease dynamics also have nocturnal dimensions. When artificial water points or supplemental feeding drives congregation in ways that would not naturally occur, the close proximity of different species can increase pathogen transmission risk. In such contexts, conservation planning must weigh immediate benefits and long-term epidemiological costs. Monitoring at night often provides early warnings: unusual clustering, unexpected mortalities, strange behavior that signal deeper systemic shifts requiring intervention. There are also ethical decisions to be made in the dark. Anti-poaching patrols operate under a heavy moral load: the choice to intercept a suspicious vehicle or to wait for backup, the balance of risk for humans and animals, the quiet negotiation with law and community. Effective anti-poaching is as much about intelligence and relationships as it is about enforcement. Night patrols that engage local communities, that offer incentives for reporting, and that are transparent about outcomes tend to be more sustainable than those relying solely on force. Against this human apparatus, the savanna continues to assert its own agency, shaped by evolutionary pressures that operate beyond our schedules. Nocturnal niches are places of innovation. Adaptations in hearing, scent, and motion that have emerged over millennia allow species to exploit hours when daylight predators are asleep and when thermal stress is low. In this sense, darkness is not a deficit but an alternative resource, an ecological currency with its own rates of exchange. On certain nights, rare alignments occur. A new moon, a cool humidity, and a migrating pulse creates conditions where the plain seems to breathe as one organism. Memory and movement sync in a way that makes corridors glow faintly with activity. Herds moving with uncanny regularity, predators adjusting spacing in response, and the smaller fauna responding in feed and flee waves. Researchers prize these nights for the clarity they bring to understanding how the system self-organizes. They teach us that the night is not random, it's patterned, and those patterns are teachable if we attend. There are also pockets of surprising mutualism that reveal the night's ingenuity. Certain birds follow hooved herbivores, not to scavenge, but to catch the insects that the mammal's movement flushes from grass and dung.
In some cases, bats and moths enter a chase that is almost choreographic, the bat executing slight turns and pitch adjustments as moths employ erratic flight to break sonar locks. These micro-interactions are not merely spectacles. They are trials of sensory systems pushing against one another in an evolutionary arms race that plays out across nights and generations. As dawn begins to edge the horizon, the plain's tempo changes. Predators disengage from long watches. Herbivores break into feeding rhythms optimized for daylight. Birds that had been silent begin to sing. The night does not simply fade, it hands over its accumulated information to the day. Tracks recorded in mud by a ranger will guide decisions about fence maintenance. Thermal camera logs will inform which corridors need less human disturbance. A community's oral note about an unusual migration will lead a scientist to a previously overlooked microhabitat. We rise with this transition as well, but the night lingers in the body. The memory of insect percussion, the geometry of ripples on water, the particular cadence of calls that threaded through darkness. These are the textures that conservationists seek to preserve, less the novelty of an individual species than the integrity of the nighttime processes that sustain them all. If this night lingered with you, like or share this journey, and consider gently learning how to support the quiet places that shape so much of life we take for granted. Finally, the savanna teaches an essential humility. In daylight, we measure abundance by sight. In darkness, significance is measured differently, by acoustic richness, by the diversity of scent trails, by the resilience of corridors used under moonlight. Listening deeply over seasons reveals declines before they are visible and recoveries before they are widely recorded. The night is a patient teacher, and our role is not domination but attentive partnership. So we leave the waterhole behind as the sky blanches and a cool, early blue gathers on the rim. The last bats skid home between branches, and a distant elephant blows once more before padding away. Footprints dry in stages. Dew braces for the sun's first blade. The plain settles into a new set of rules, the bright economy of day, but the night's ledger remains, written in tracks and recordings, and in the quiet knowledge of those who watch under shadow. Breathe out and carry with you a little of that hush, the understanding that darkness on the savanna is full, functional, and fragile in equal measure. The stars will return tonight to the same map. The waterhole will reopen to the same careful choreography, and the small acts of shielding a light, of supporting a local monitoring team, of choosing to learn, will add up in ways that the night itself would not add, if it were to nod. Rest now with the plain's last quiet, its sounds, its scents, its patient, watchful life continuing, unhurried, beneath a sky that keeps counting stars.